Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Alexey, and today I have a special guest, Maor Appelbaum. Maor is a well-known mastering engineer who has been working with such great bands as Rhapsody of Fire, Meatloaf, Yngwie, Malmsteen, Halford, Sabaton, and many more. In our today's interview with Maor Appelbaum, we're going to be talking about mastering metal. It's a huge honor to have you on my YouTube channel again, Maor. And let's start our interview. How to prepare a mix for mastering?
I think the best way to do that is actually to get in touch with the mastering engineer, figure out how he likes to get the files, he or she, of course. Um, I think everyone's different, but there's some probably guidelines there. I think it's important to label the files right, so the person who gets them knows what the file is, the artist name and the song title, and then if it's a mix, if there's an alternate version, like an instrumental or a TV track or clean version. So I think labeling is very, very important. And also, some engineers like it in a certain volume level. Some like it as is. Some like to get more information, like if they need to create fades or not, or there's a certain length. It's really about communicating with the person. Just sending the files can work, but if you communicate, you're probably going to have the chances of getting a smoother process. It doesn't mean you have to. There's engineers that don't communicate on that level and that just get it and work on it. But I think it's a good practice, to get in touch with the person you're going to work with and make sure they have exactly what they want and need, and have it labeled in a good way so that there's no mix up of the files. I think really that's the most important part.
If a metal track sounds not powerful enough, can mastering make it sound better?
Well, the whole mastering process can improve the sound of a mix when it's done to the right fitting of it. There's records that come in that are not as powerful, and in the mastering we make them even more powerful. Yes, and of course it can go the other way. You can bring something to mastering and it can get less powerful or thinned out or whatever. It depends on what's being done and if it fits. But in general, the process can bring more power to the sound, if done in a fitting way for the music.
What is the difference between stem mastering and a single track mastering? Because sometimes some mastering engineers ask musicians to send them stems for mastering, and in the usual way, mastering engineers are asking to send them only single track for mastering. So in this case, what is the difference between stems mastering and a single track mastering?
So the normal mastering, which is the basic mastering, is normally done from a 2-track stereo mix, and you work with it as is. So the mix is already built in the file, and you work with that. And that's based on how the production and mix was done. When it goes to stem mastering, which is a different type of mastering, you basically have the mix separated apart to different layers. Could be drums, vocals, guitars, bass, and then you create a submix from them. So you adjust the volumes between the different elements, and with that you master it. So you can apply different processing to each stem and then make a mix out of them, and then maybe process the whole stereo bus again. The idea in stem mastering is basically, if you think of it as separation mastering, where you can separate certain elements. Some mastering engineers do stem mastering, some don't. It's a preference for them to choose if they want to do that. Some stem mastering is only playback and vocals, and you adjust that. Some stem mastering includes drums, bass, vocals, guitars, and keyboards. Some stem mastering can actually involve even more separated stems. It's just basically the more stems you have, the more you create submixes. So stem mastering is basically submixing into mastering, by mastering each stem and summing them together.
How loud should metal tracks be nowadays, according to LUFS? So in this case, should metal tracks be as loud as modern pop and hip hop tracks, according to LUFS, or should they be louder or quieter? How does it work when it comes to LUFS?
I don't have a specific volume that I work with. I don't have a target level that I aim always to. Some masters are way, way louder than others. Some actually are very dynamic compared to others. You want to make it sound good. Let's start with that. If the LUFS is high or low, that is less important at that moment. It's more about how you make it sound good. And then how loud can you push it while still making it sound good? That's the next step. And then if it starts to ruin itself, then you go back a bit. You see what's the point where you still get the volume, still get the quality. So some stuff sounds good at higher LUFSs. Some doesn't stand getting louder. And some stuff sounds good at very low. So, just because the genre is metal doesn't mean it gets stuck on metal. It could be in hip hop, pop, any genre. I've done records that are lower in LUFS. I've done records that are very high LUFS, regardless of the genre, more just because of the aesthetic of the sound.
Do you use reference tracks when mastering metal music?
I personally don't use any reference tracks to compare anything. I work with the music as is. I'm not comparing it to other music in the session. So I don't put the reference track. I just work with the track I got, and I try to get it as sounding as best as possible and making it feel right to me, and hopefully that translates to the client, producer, mixer, band, and the fans. And, if they need any changes, we do them.
What tips can you give on using reference tracks for mastering? How to use a reference track when you are mastering at home, for instance, by using plugins?
Just remember that a reference track not always is what the band is sounding like. So if you're referencing something that's very far from what the band sounds like, you might be pushing certain frequencies and levels that don't fit what you're working on. So if you decide to choose a reference track, try to get something that's similar to what you're actually working with. That way, it's not going to be far out. It's not going to be totally different. It's going to be in the ballpark where you can actually make adjustments. But if you just put something that the band's like or you like, and it doesn't sit with the music similar or has a kind of a connection to it, you might be pushing frequencies and levels and dynamics too far. And sometimes it can work, but because you have like a concept, but it doesn't mean that's always going to be working. So be aware of that.
My next question is, what mixing problems mastering can solve?
Well, a lot of times the projects that come in have certain frequencies that are exaggerated due to problems in the monitoring, like rooms that have acoustical issues, or monitors that have acoustical issues, or both of them together. And you get a buildup of frequencies that are in the low end, the high end, the mids, and mastering, when it's done right, of course. And when I say right or well, when it's done with the concept of improving the result, then it can fix some frequency imbalances to a certain degree, of course, because there's a point where those fixes can actually change the feel of the sound and the music. So sometimes you have to think if what you're doing by fixing it, if it's helping the music or not.
My next question is how to make Metal Master sound good on different devices.
Just like any genre of music, from metal, hip hop, rock, pop, blues, country, any genre, you want to know how to work with that genre. You want to know how to work with the sound. You want to make sure it translates well on different speakers. If there's imbalances in terms of the frequencies or dynamics, you want to see how you can adjust them so they will translate better. What works for metal doesn't always work for rock or hip hop, but you probably got to know the genre enough to know if you're doing too much or too little. So every genre has its own areas of work, but overall there's concepts of what sounds balanced and imbalanced and what makes the speakers work better or not, and how it translates on different speakers and playback systems all around. So it's a work of translation. It's a work of artistic intent. It's a creative and technical process.
My next question about AI mastering, because right now a lot of audio companies are promoting AI mastering. And in your opinion, what is AI mastering, and can AI mastering replace real mastering somehow in the near future?
Well, AI is, if it's AI, a lot of them it's not AI. A lot of them it's just algorithms that had data prior to it, and by that it's working. So not every AI is AI. Some of it is just programmed mastering. When you have someone working with you, you can discuss the project, you can communicate, make artistic choices and creative ideas and opinions, and bring that into the table and achieve great results that way. Just like when you're recording and mixing. If AI can replace, or those things can replace, anything can be replaced if you accept it. It's the same thing as like, can singers be replaced? Well, if you accept what an AI can do, then yeah. Can mixers be replaced? Well, if you accept what an AI can bring, then yeah. Same thing as the songwriters. If you accept what an AI songwriting program can do, then it will be replaceable. Anything can be replaced if it's accepted. Can people be replaced? Yeah, if people accept being replaced by robots, then it will be accepted. It's just a matter of how people accept it, and if they're cool with the result, and if they think that this is what fits what they're working on. To tell you that it has an emotional impact, well, again, that's where there's a human factor of making decisions and communicating and bringing different tastes to the table, and working together, team effort. Those things can yield amazing results together if it's done well with the right people. AI or whatever is there can maybe bring something to the table. It doesn't mean it's the same, but if people will accept it, then they'll accept it, whatever it is.
Thank you so much. And my final question about mastering in the box versus analog mastering, because again, there are a lot of courses by different online academies for sound engineers how to master in the box, but there are almost no any courses how to master by using analog equipment. And in this case, what is the difference about the final sound between mastering in the box versus analog mastering? And can you achieve good results by mastering in the box?
Well, there are courses about mastering with gear. I did a course called Creative Mastering with Maor Appelbaum, and you can Google that, or you can add that as a link there if people want to check it out. And I'm showing there how to work with external equipment, analog gear, and listening to the and auditioning and figuring out what works really good for the project and what fits less. So there is a video out there to check out. In addition to that, the plugins today sound amazing, and they've improved big time in the past 5-10 years. So I'm not saying plugins are not good. They're amazing. And also hardware is amazing. There's amazing stuff being made nowadays that's really cool. I personally have a line of analog hardware products. The oven, the stove, the cooker, the grill, those are being used for mastering, and mixing, and, I have also gear for tracking, like the roaster and the steamer. And I have other products as well. which I personally use in my mastering chain. I use an oven, a stove, a cooker. I have a ton of other analog gear, for example. Those were a few. There's other pieces of gear that I use here in my desk. I like using hardware. Some stuff just goes by hardware. Some stuff goes. Of course, you have digital converters and limiters and all that stuff, of course. But I love using hardware, and I love also combining hardware with software. So there's nothing wrong in both worlds. Some stuff works amazing in plugin world. Some stuff works amazing in real hardware. Some stuff works great as the combination of hardware and plugins. And each one has a different sound and different application. And you need to test and see which one you like. Me having both hardware and software, I can make a decision which one works best and how much I use each one, because I can combine them if I want, or just use one instead of the other. There are things that analog has a benefit in them in certain designs until they make plugins that emulate them good enough. But in today's plugin arsenal, there's amazing things that you can work with and get great results. So I personally prefer combining, working with hardware and plugins together, or just with one of them, depending on the project. But definitely, there's both worlds, and you can bring different things to the table, and they're different. But still, both of them have their pros and cons, of course.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking your time, Maor. It was a huge pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for being on my YouTube channel again. And thank you so much for your friendship and support all the time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me, and I wish all your listeners all the best. Good luck with all the production, recording, mixing, and mastering, and the music. And let's make the world nicer and fuller with amazing music and sounds.